Riley, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Riley Long. My pronouns are he, him. I am a special education teacher at Blue Valley West High School.
Welcome to TranScript, where we talk about trans issues in education.
I'm your host, Gene Johnson, former superintendent in the Shawnee Mission School District.
And I'm Brad Tennant, longtime math teacher in Kansas. And today on TranScript, we'll hear from a trans teacher and what, if anything, that means in today's world of public education.
Let's start at the beginning, Riley, and tell us when you started teaching and why you got into education.
I just finished my 4th year of full-time teaching. I was a substitute before that. I spent some time after I finished college traveling. I lived abroad for a few years, so I kind of got a little bit later of a start on my teaching career, but ever since I was young, I wanted to be a teacher. I have 2 younger brothers, so I'm a very bossy person, and from an early age, I just liked showing them, how to do things, and whether it was helping with their soccer teams or, just taking care of them. Teaching became something that felt really natural for me, and I always felt more comfortable being around kids than really adults, and that's still true to this day. So just, that feeling was something that I wanted to continue.
Well, and of course, we're here to talk about education. But can we hear a little bit about your personal journey?
Gosh, I'm losing track of the years now. At first, I had it all memorized. I've been out as trans for about 7 years. I came out and first just started with socially transitioning. So I shared my new name, my new pronouns with my family and friends, and kind of tried that on for a while to see what it felt like. It felt really good. So about a year after that, so 6 years ago, I started medically transitioning, which included taking testosterone, and then a couple years later having top surgery, which was a really big affirming thing in my life. So that's kind of when it started. I've been really fortunate that I've had very supportive family. I've had a few family members, of course, that it's more difficult than others, but no one that really shut me out of their life, and I feel really fortunate for that. That was kind of my journey, being out as trans. Now, I've been out as part of the queer community the last 15 years. I first came out when I was in college as a lesbian, but that identity has changed quite a bit over time. Obviously, being a guy now, I tend to use bisexual or pansexual or even straight in some circumstances. I'm engaged to a woman, so it almost appears that I am in a straight presenting relationship. So those kind of things, coming out is a continued process, and so is my journey really with all of that.
Were there issues that or barriers that you felt that were in your way when you were in middle school and high school?
So when I was in middle school and high school, I didn't really have the words for what I'm describing to you now. I did always feel different, but it was kind of looked at back then as, oh, she's just a tomboy. And so I did feel different, but I also didn't think it was like anything beyond, what I was used to. So, when we grow up in a society where everybody's this certain way, and particularly, being in conservative Kansas, I don't feel like I really thought twice about it. Now, when I was in high school, I definitely didn't feel like I was wanting to do similar things to some of maybe my female friends, whether that's, get dressed up or like have a boyfriend or any of that. Like that didn't really interest me as much, but I think it wasn't until I really left that kind of Johnson County bubble and I went to college and was around a variety of different people that I was like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Other people are feeling this way. It's okay to express that. And I just think that, my earliest memories are I wish I was like my brothers, but I knew I couldn't be. But once I kind of was able to again be around a variety of people, it was like, okay, like I'm not the only one that feels this way. There is other ways to coexist and to live. So I guess going back to your question, there weren't barriers as in like I wanted to transition or I was bullied because of it, because it was something I was just struggling with internally.
Well, Riley, there's been both Missouri and Kansas have passed anti-trans laws, parents' right laws, and all sorts of things related to trans. What are your thoughts about that?
It's really hard. I feel like there's not a spot for me in society. Now, I feel like to a certain degree I have privilege. I'm a white person. I'm past. I'm over the age of 18. I have pretty good control of my life. From the aspect of being under 18 where you have to have, you're still living under your parents' roof and all that sort of thing. It causes me a lot of times to not be out about who I am in different settings. For example, while I'm at work, there are people that know that I'm trans. If you Google my name, you can find it out pretty quickly with just different news articles. But I don't freely speak about it because I know there's not the understanding there. I know it's highly politicized, and I don't know, where people are coming from, what their background is. So it just feels kind of like a constant state of being on edge, whether I'm in a public restroom or I'm meeting a new group of people. How are they going to react to me? Am I going to be found out if I'm trying to live stealth? Am I going to be in danger? That kind of thing. So it also kind of feels like, why is everybody so obsessed with me? I don't know why we have to hyper focus on trans people all the time. We were such a small percentage of society. And I feel like there's better things we can be doing with our time than telling people what restroom to go to, because I'm going to keep going to the men's restroom no matter what. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's not a good feeling. So
Do your students know you're trans?
they don't. Now, there's kind of many reasons for that. For one, I do work with students with disabilities, variety of disabilities. So part of me feels like I don't know if I can describe it in a way that maybe some would intellectually understand. Now, I'm making an assumption here, of course. Now, with others, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm scared to. Now, this year is the first year I've talked to some of my students about being a part of the queer community and that I am a part of that. But it hasn't felt like a time where I need to be like, well, and this is exactly how I identify and, go on and on. Because being trans, of course, is something that is important, but there's so many other things about me that I think is more important. And
So
that
how do your students react to that when you tell them? Is it a positive reaction?
So when I've told them I'm part of the queer community, typically it's not a positive reaction. So that's why I also don't
Yeah.
really want to go into detail. I've of course worked with students like in gay straight alliances and things like that where I've been a lot more open because I know that's already a safe space. But being in high school, I don't know. It's something I reflect on a lot, and I've even thought about, okay, maybe next year I start trying to be a little more open with students. But I don't want it to feel like, okay, well, Riley's creating this narrative and everybody's talking about, he's talking about his personal life. So I don't know. I haven't found the perfect way to go about that right now. And I've just finished my first year at this school too. So I don't know. In time, I hope that I can be a little more open.
How about staff?
That's kind of the same thing. So the people that I work with in special education, most of them know just because they know about my personal life. I talk to them about the things that I do. But working with a staff of like 200 people, unless I was to, get on the mic at a staff meeting, like there wouldn't be really a way or an appropriate setting to really talk about it.
So, now that you're in the high school, how do you see the high school environment? Has it changed much since you were in high school? Do you think it's more welcoming?
I don't. And that's, I think, the shocking thing. And, it's hard because I'm analyzing it as an adult versus when, I was a kid. But I just felt like everybody feels like once marriage equality happened, like, okay, well, now we're all on board or whatever, and there's so many other issues beyond that. I almost feel like it's worse now because it's so much more in the news and there is all the legislation going on. I do feel like there's more support when, every school has like a gay straight alliance, or there's teachers that, are very open about like whether they have like a rainbow sticker on their door, that kind of thing. But I don't think policies have changed um, enough that we're really protecting students in the way we should be at this point.
Do you think that some of the training that you do, I mean, Gene and I have talked about this before, that at the beginning of the year, the state mandates that we go through bloodborne pathogen training and bullying, and do you think that something about transgender awareness would be I mean, to me, it seems like something that would be helpful to have as part of our training. Because to be honest with you, I certainly run into transgender students a lot more often than I run into bloodborne pathogens, and it seems like it is, maybe they're both, critical. But gosh, I would certainly think that type of exposure and that type of training could really help make our community a little bit more welcoming.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, I think, the biggest barrier for me is I have training. I obviously have lived experience. I'm an educator. But trying to get organizations to understand that they need the training, I think, is the biggest thing. And because in the schools, we have parents and everybody has different beliefs. And right now, I feel like it is so much based off of, okay, well, this is a political agenda, that I don't think administrations feel they can bring in this kind of training and not have some kind of pushback. So it's something that I have done in my district for our administrators, and it's something I've done for our diversity committee, but I wish I was able to do it within the schools and be able to talk to all of the teachers. But schools are not really a place right now where I found a whole lot of success being able to openly talk about this.
Have you tried?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've spoke on many board meetings in my district. I've met with our superintendent multiple times, and the last time I met with our superintendent, it was kind of like we're not going to do anything to make trans people feel unwelcome, but if we make them feel overly welcome, then we're going to get too much pushback. So it's kind of sitting in this type of gray area where we cannot develop policies because we don't have enough people on board, but we're not going to, we're going to try to do our best to protect them without making it, I don't know, obvious for everybody to know. Like, it almost seems a little bit like hush hush or like secret in certain ways, especially when we're talking about, there's been a lot of discussion about like bathrooms right now in the schools and all of that. So yeah, I mean, my first couple of years, I really pushed hard, but I kind of felt like I kept hitting a brick wall. I went to a point where I recorded a training with another staff member that was supposed to be available for everyone to access on the school's website, and right before it was published, they ended up pulling it and deciding that they weren't ready for it to be live, that kind of thing. So in the last couple of years, I have not pushed as hard for my own, mental state, and just because it really upsets me, of course, when I hit rejection. But I do at times push harder, and other times I just feel like I need to focus on, just myself.
Well, and I wouldn't give up, because I mean, one of the things that
Right.
I've told Gene, that what surprised me is that how different, even within a district, one school can be to another, where one school says, no, we're not really interested, or we're not ready, or, that there's some liability issues, that another school might be more welcoming. So I wouldn't give up on that. And certainly if you've got something that you would like to pass on to us, I think we could maybe find a place that is more welcoming for you to present that. Because I feel like that our high school that would be really beneficial for us. And I can't speak for the other schools, and maybe if I asked my administrator, that I'd be completely wrong. But it certainly seems like that'd be something that, as a classroom teacher, that would be helpful
Yeah,
to me.
that's true.
Yeah.
Brad and I have been around for a while in education, and I started in '69, and there was talk about gay people, then there was the lesbians, and same-sex marriage, and all of that is kind of transitioned through, I guess, our lives over time. And I think that, and this is only my personal opinion, but I think people are a lot more understanding than they certainly were in the past. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we're going to make some headway here?
Yeah, I think so. I think about it in like my family, for example. When I first came out, it was hard. It felt strange. It was like, why is this happening? And through time, mostly everybody got on board. Now, I think, trying to project that example onto society is going to look a lot different, but I do think we'll definitely make headway through time. And I agree. I think we were so hyper focused on sexuality, and now it's a little more
Mm-hmm.
on gender. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely believe it'll get better. Um, it's just that, it's hard to say that to somebody currently going through, of course, a hard time, and it's going to get better. But um, and just to your point earlier about the other schools, I was going to say that I did notice that the Shawnee Mission School District posted something about it being Pride Month on their Instagram. I follow all the schools just to see what's going on, and I thought that was really awesome. I have never seen any school in this area post something that openly, and I thought that was wonderful. So, I mean, I'm glad that you brought that point up, because I think, the little bubble I'm in does not represent all of Kansas, all of the Midwest. So, reaching out to see, hey, there are people here that, could maybe be a little more open to it, or might, help me send out some feelers would be, a really good idea.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. I'll try to pass on the good word. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, I
And
think a lot
go
of
ahead.
that starts with the students at the school too, on how they accept people that are quote different, and that could be in all sorts of different areas. But I do think I was in Shawnee Mission long enough to see a lot of things happen over time, and I think acceptance of people who are different, whatever that is, has been something that the district has really spent a lot of time working with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, we
true.
kind of see in general. I think maybe one of the things you were saying is that maybe in the schools we're seeing more progress than in just outside of the schools. Is that something you're seeing or no?
Outside of the schools, as in
In
just.
real life. So, as a student, we hope that we're leading the way to be supportive for any minimalized student, and that we're kind of their safe space. And then outside of the school, that we know we're in Kansas, we're in the Midwest, and we see what's going on with legislation that might not feel quite as welcoming. And so we're hoping we're kind of the starting place that maybe you can get your foothold, or get more comfortable with yourself while you're in school, and then when you step out,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you have to be a little braver.
Yeah, I think there's definitely teachers out there and administrators that, want to do the work and are safe spaces and understand, kind of what's going on. But I just think it needs to be more of an overall, everybody's on board. And it's a lot of times, like you were saying, like the boards that, they are the ones that are in charge at the end of the day. So I think it's just hard when it's kind of various, not opinions, but ways of doing things, and trying to just have a solidified outlook or way about going, and helping these students. I will just say, of course, if you're interested in knowing more, uh, my Instagram is Trans Teacher Talks. You can go to transteachertalks.com and learn more. And I remain hopeful that this is going to be something that gets better for students in Kansas and the surrounding area. I do agree that a lot of times students are the ones that are taking the lead on this, and I think they may even do more work than I can, because they are the ones that are the future and experiencing what is happening in the classroom. So yeah, I just appreciate you all making this heard. I think this podcast is wonderful. The fact that this is happening and just being talked about is the first step, and I really thank you for that.
Riley Long, thank you for joining us today on TranScript.
We've covered a lot of ground here today. Gene and I are going to ponder this for a little bit, and we'll be back in a minute to talk about what we've learned. Well, it was great having Riley come talk with us. Riley Long, teacher at Blue Valley West. I felt that he gave us a lot of insight into his experience in the being transgendered and being in schools is still not an easy path.
No doubt about that. He's so sincere about what he believes and what he's experienced and what he feels needs to occur to gather that more acceptance that I think he was referring to. And I think one of the things he's a bit disappointed about is the overall support he's getting from, number one, the administration, and number two, from maybe the community. And that brought us, I noticed that when we mentioned Shawnee Mission and some things that were going on in Shawnee Mission, he really perked up. Yeah.
I think what was interesting to me also is that he's been doing presentations, basically, what it's like to be trans, what issues that students might expect. I think he said he was giving it to administration, but I think it would be so helpful at the next level down to be given that type of a presentation to teachers. And I think he would find that there is acceptance at that level as well. And it would be so beneficial, I think, to many teachers that their exposure to transgender students is the one or two transgender kids in their class.
Yeah.
And that to have a peer that is so well-spoken and I think just that exposure would be, gosh, as I said earlier, I think that should be part of our fall training. That if we had Riley Long come in and talk to us for 20 minutes about transgender students and some of the issues that they're going to be dealing with and that we can help them with, coming from a transgendered adult, that would be just so beneficial.
Yeah, I think I agree with you totally on that, because what that does is give the staff the understanding that the district is supporting all of our students. They're making sure that all of our students are safe, even though there's a lot of people on the staff in every school district, I'm sure, Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission, Olathe, that don't want to hear about trans kids. They don't want to hear about gay kids. They just want to hear about whatever normal kids are.
Right.
And so I think and I know we've talked over time about the fact, just the pronoun issue in schools, where some people go, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, eventually, I think over time, they'll get there will be an understanding that is an expectation, and we expect the district expects you to follow.
Sure, and I guess, again, it comes back to regardless of the policy, and we've talked about this before, it comes back to the individuals implementing those policies.
Right.
And, I imagine that if you had a dozen transgender students out of Johnson County School District and talk to them about their journey in the last 4 years, that their stories couldn't be any more different. They will all be unique. Partly is that the individual's story is always going to be unique, but because how they're treated in a classroom or by administration or in a particular building, that it makes a big difference. I think that my impression is that Riley said that things have gotten better, but not as they haven't improved as much as he would wish that they had.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine that maybe this could be something just added to additional new teacher support.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's been a while since you were a new teacher, but you certainly see those first year teachers that are not dealing with issues of gender or sexuality that struggle anyway.
Yeah.
So why can't we add a little bit of extra support for
Right.
those other teachers as well?
Right. Okay.
And that's this episode of TranScript. TranScript is produced by Sam Zeff and is part of the Archiver series of podcasts.
Make sure to subscribe to Archiver wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Gene Johnson.
And I'm Brad Tennant, and we'll see you on the next TranScript.